We are thrilled today to welcome some alum who are going to be sharing from Alvarez and Marsal. We were just having a wonderful conversation, Sarah and I, about her trajectory in consulting. So I am thrilled to always have alumni share from an employer and to be able to talk about the work of where they are now and their recruitment needs. And we are recording the session for all the students who were on today. If you're in a position where you're able to turn on a camera, I would highly encourage it. It makes it much better for our speakers to be actually looking at faces. There will be some time for some questions, whether or not you type them into the chat or raise your hand. So thank you all so much for joining us today, Sarah. I'm thrilled that you reached out, and I can't wait to do some of my own learning here. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to you and your team, including alum.
Great. Good afternoon, everybody. We're going to do a round of introductions. We've got some slides to go through to give you an overview of Alvarez and Marsal, a little bit about the positions that we're hiring, and then we really want to spend the majority of time taking your questions, talking about our own career trajectories, and sharing as much information as we can. So to start, my name is Sarah Comstock. I'm a director here at Alvarez and Marsal. I have about 13 years in federal government consulting, coming out of my MPA at the Trachtenberg School. I graduated in 2011. And I loved everything at the Trachtenberg School. I have wonderful experience and memories of that time. And I do think it really set me up for success in a career in federal government consulting. So looking forward to sharing all that with you guys today. And I'll pass it on to Timberly.
Thanks, Sarah. Hi, everyone. My name is Timberly Thompson. I am a consultant in Alvarez and Marsal's public sector, technically an education consultant. And I graduated from Trachtenberg in 2022 with my master's in public policy. And I'm Ty.
Thanks, Kimberly. I think I might be frozen. No, I think I'm good now. I'm Ty. I'm an analyst here at Alvarez and Marsal. I was an undergraduate intern last summer, and now I'm back as a full-time analyst after graduating from Columbian College in December.
Great. Thanks, Ty. All right, so I'm going to pull up some slides. Again, we're not going to spend too much time on them, but we definitely want to introduce you to the firm. Are you guys seeing that?
No.
No. Okay. I never use Zoom.
Right
Okay.
at the bottom where it says share screen. There we go.
Yeah, missed the share button at the bottom. Okay. All right. So what we're going to talk about today, we're going to tell you a little bit more about Alvarez and Marsal. We'll go into the public sector services area. We're going to share a little bit about our DEIA work and internal efforts, and then we'll go over the internship program and positions, and then we'll talk about anything that you guys are interested in. So Alvarez and Marsal has a very interesting background, and I think one that's actually very impressive. It's not old, right? But it started in the 80s, and it really built a brand around mergers and acquisitions and financial transactionary services. And so the really big turning point for the firm was in 2008 when our M&A practice managed the wind down of the Lehman Brothers bankruptcy. And as well in 2005, helped provide support for the New Orleans public schools in the wake of the Katrina hurricane. So we really got a background in managing really big, hairy problems that are happening in financial institutions, as well as in a lot of our public school systems and educational sectors. And Timberly works in our education practice within public sector. In 2020, another really big effort that is one of our major proof points is our work with the state of Rhode Island in terms of its COVID responses. So we have a very large and growing public sector practice. I am part of a very new federal team. We're about 20 people. We started about 2 years ago. And so that is part of our public sector services group. And it's really a bit of an incubator startup within A&M's public sector and A&M at large. So that's a little bit of a history of the background of A&M. And moving on, Again, it's actually a very large firm. We have 10,000 plus employees across 39 countries with 80 offices. So it's really a global brand. And, one of our selling points within public sector is that we focus on bringing commercial sector best practices to the federal government and the public sector. And that is really something that is a lived experience in my everyday here at the firm. Just got off the phone with someone in transactionary services to learn about their offerings. So it's a really interesting place to be. One of the big selling points for me in coming to A&M was the core values. I know people, that might sound fluffy, but they really are a part of the value for me being an employee of this firm. And if you look in the center here, they really are practice in our everyday. Particularly, I mean, for me, it's about fun and authenticity. There is just it's a very flat organization, right? So that we have our MDs, our managing directors are in the trenches with our staff on the ground working on projects, and it is very everyone's very approachable and authentic, and willing to roll up their sleeves. So it's just a very equitable organization. I don't know, Ty or Timberly, if you have anything to add there.
Just that I
Yeah.
concur.
No, go ahead, Timberly. Sorry.
Oh, I was just saying that I concur. I was nodding my head ferociously.
Yeah, and I as well. What I was going to say is that even when I was an intern, I was still regularly on calls with the MD who was leading the client project I was on, and I was discussing the challenges the client was facing with her, sharing my opinion. It just really is something that plays out in practice where firm leadership is asking everyone all the way down to the interns what their perspective is and what they think we should do for the project.
That's great. Thanks, Ty. All right, moving on, we're going to talk a little bit about what makes us different, which I think are some of the things I've already alluded to. The number one thing that I've noticed and is very true is what we call bringing an operator mindset to our clients. And that is basically saying we walk the walk and talk the talk of your everyday and understand your challenges. So one of A&M's kind of hiring practices is to bring in luminaries across industry and folks that are heads in their field. So we bring in, human capital officers. We bring in people who were the heads of public school districts. So we're really bringing people to our practice that are doing, every day to help share with our clients that we know where they're coming from and we can craft solutions to their problems that are really practical and implementable within their space. So that's a really big one. It's a huge part of the A&M brand. Again, as I mentioned, the MDs are really doing delivery work with the rest of the workforce. So it is really senior-led teams with subject matter experts solving problems with our analysts and consultants and managers every day. And I think also, we are very much focused on providing immediate value to our clients as well as a longer term solution. So I think some of the big four consulting firms, and especially in the federal space, might get those long-term 4-year contracts where you are embedded with a client for multiple years, delivering some of the operational support. That is not the A&M brand or the A&M way. We are coming in on higher impact, short-term contracts to do strategic work in a shorter time frame at a higher value. So that is a big difference in our delivery model than you might see at some of the other firms. Timberly, Ty, anything to add there? Nope.
No, I think you've covered it.
Okay, great. All right. So this is a little bit about how we're spread within the public sector practice. We have a large healthcare footprint in state and local governments. So we have a lot of experts in Medicare, Medicaid, behavioral services, health services at the state and local levels. I'm meeting some of them and they're very impressive. These are people who have been implementers in their state and local governments and have moved to the consulting side. Additionally, as we've said, our education, our K through 12 and higher ed practice is really leading the charge on helping to restructure school districts and achieve better outcomes for our education clients and their constituents. And then the federal space, as I've alluded to, is a growing area. We have some great work, most recently with the USDA, doing a very large engagement for them. So that is some of our major public sector elements. This is a quick view of some of our primary clients. As I mentioned, we have a lot of work with state and local governments, a lot in the health and human services departments across state and local, education practice, and then our growing federal practice. And some lovely icons about all the places where we've provided value. And then here are some of the example engagements. As I mentioned, one of our premier engagements is the COVID-19 response for the state of Rhode Island, really just building a massive rapid response to address the immediate public health crisis and getting the funds out into the community. Another one that I'll allude to at the bottom of the slide here is our USDA work. This was a massive stand-up of a large team where we were brought in to implement funding via the Inflation Reduction Act to farmers and ranchers who may have experienced discrimination in the lending programs run by the FDA. So we stood up a massive team to review applications, do monitoring and reporting, basically reconcile all the applications and get financial assistance out to 43,000 individuals across 50 states. So this is a very large engagement that a large amount of our staff were supporting over the past year. So I think that's it on Timberly, do you want to add anything, or should I pass it on?
I was just going to add that I was on that team for over a year. So if you have any questions about the work that we did there, feel free to ask.
Great. All right, so now I'm going to pass it off to you to go a little bit over some of our DEIA.
Yes, so I'll speak briefly. One of A&M's core values is inclusive diversity, and as such, we have a number of employee resource groups, aka ERGs, and you're free to join whichever resource group you identify with. I personally am a part of the Black Employee Network and the Women's Leadership Connection, and it's just a great way to network internally, as well as gain formal and informal mentorship and just have fun. Which is another core value. You can join any group that you identify with, as I said, but we also host events that are open to everyone, such as lunch and learns and happy hours and social events.
Speaking of which, we just had the Women's Leadership Connection night out at the Washington Mystics game last week, which was a really, really great time. And there was, representation across people at all levels of the firm. So it was a really wonderful way to connect.
And with that, I will go ahead and pass it to Tom to talk about internship program.
Thanks. So I'm just going to give a brief rundown of what our internship program looks like. And really, the through-running theme here is that our internship program pretty closely mirrors what you would expect to do as an equivalent member of the full-time staff. So what I did as an intern is pretty similar to what I did as a full-time analyst. And that's why you see on this slide really the range of different types of work that we do here in public sector. So the biggest thing in the top of the slide is project experience. All of our interns are staffed onto one of our client projects. Usually that's about 3/4 of their time, and they'll take on whatever role is necessary on that project to help deliver real meaningful work to the client, again, in the same way that they would if they were on full-time staff. But that's not the entirety of the internship program. We have some other components such as analytics training. Near the bottom right, there's a standard Excel course that the interns go through that both gives you familiarity with one of the major programs we use, but is also a great opportunity to practice some of your teamwork and presentation skills with the rest of the small team that you would be assigned to. and we have an internal project to support our business development. So for me, that was a research project for the federal team back when we were really starting to do the background research to help get it set up, to help figure out what we might be able to sell to one of the major federal agencies, what their needs are and where the potential alignment is with our offerings and where we might be able to help. That's really what the workday looks like as an intern. But there's also a lot of support structure in place. So for example, sorry, Sarah, could we stay on the previous slide for a moment, please? So there's a lot of existing structure around mentorship. Every intern is assigned sort of a general buddy to help them navigate being part of the practice, but also typically a project buddy to help them navigate being on the client project. So we really have those formal mentorship avenues in place. But what I would say is that mentorship doesn't have to be limited to that. Everyone here is extremely friendly, extremely welcoming, extremely happy to help. So a lot of sort of informal mentorship and guidance will form through those avenues as well. The final thing I just want to highlight before we move on to day in the life is that we also do a lot of sort of team building and fun activities with the interns. So think happy hours. I know in my year there was another Mystics game, stuff like that to help the interns get to know the people here and build camaraderie. So moving along. So this is just a day in the life to sort of give you an example of what a day might look like. And starting in the mid-morning. So our interns are, again, staffed directly on one of our client projects and will be working on real deliverables. So when I was an intern, I was on an organizational assessment for a county department of general services. And our big deliverable for them was a presentation of the challenges and opportunities we see within the department. So maybe I would get in and I would be working on, well, here are the specific challenges we see within the facilities team. And speaking up in our internal stand-ups to communicate with our team, well, this is what I see as important for facilities. Have we maybe thought about what this might mean for a broader theme with the department's leadership being too closely tied up in day-to-day operations? So really that direct interaction with my client team, being involved in client meetings and being able to directly participate in the work that's going on. For lunchtime, and I think this is something that kind of highlights a different part of the internship program. It's common for, say, some of the full-time employees at different levels to join the interns for lunch and maybe talk about the work they're doing or their experience within the firm. This is also something that's pretty common with the formal mentorship avenue, so the buddies that you're assigned as an intern. Moving along to the afternoon, so kind of an extension of the morning and what the workday looks like, of sort of other tasks that you might be asked to work on. So maybe I've gone from working on what our overview slides for this division, what we think their challenges are, to developing what we think in future state organizational chart might look like for the department. This is an extremely varied job, right? You could be on any one of a number of different kind of client projects, and you could be asked to do any one of a number of different roles within any single client project. So if you're interested in having a lot of variety and being able to constantly learn new things, that's something you get as an intern, but also something you get as full-time staff. It's common to the entire experience. And finally, for the end of the day, we've already touched on this. I think we kind of move along and get to questions, but there are a lot of fun events like happy hours or sports games or various things to let you interact with the team and get to know people and their experiences in a more casual setting.
Ty, do you want to skip 18 and we'll just run to the
Yeah,
time?
I think we're good to skip the next day in the office and move along. So for timeline, so really the important date here is the graduate internship due date for the application, which is that highlighted December 13th on the top of the slide. Unfortunately, the graduate full-time position deadline passed about 2 weeks ago. So have your applications in if you're interested by December 13th. And then from there, there's about a 6-week 6-week, 8-week process of getting to the final interview and offer stage.
And just to add on, if any of you ahead of, December 13th or after want to talk with any of us for informational interviews outside of this context, we're all available.
Yes.
And then, oh, that was the wrong one. And then here is our contact information. Timberly, Ty, I got that right? Those are your great. All right. So that was our overview. I know we have 9 minutes left. I'm happy to stick around a little after 5 if there's more questions. So Jaya, I see your first question in the chat. It's nice to meet you. I know that you said that you're graduating in December. And I think our full-time position application deadline has passed. That said, I'm happy to talk to you about, what you're interested in. And we can go from there.
Thank you so much. That means a lot. I would reach out definitely to you via email, and then we can schedule a call and go from there. Thank you so much for doing all of this and agreeing to help me.
Of course. Any questions from the group?
I don't see anything in the chat. Does anyone want to raise their hand and ask a question or put something in the chat?
Hi, my name is Asia Richardson Williams. I was just curious, based on what Ty told us about the typical day in the life of an intern, would we be working with within one sector specifically, or would we be going from sector to sector over the course of the summer?
Yeah, I'm happy to take this one. So generally, in almost all cases, you're on a single client project. So that'll sit within one of those sort of 4 sectors, verticals that we discussed earlier. That being said, typically you won't come in as someone who's aligned to a specific sector. So you're still at large and you just happen to be working on that sector specific project, if that makes sense. So within the context of the internship, you are working on a specific sector's project, but we don't consider you part of that sector quite yet in most cases. And what that means and why that distinction is important is that the sector you're on for your full-time client project might not be what you're doing for other things. So for example, I was on a county client project. So that would have been under state and local. But my practice development project was for the federal team. So I still had the opportunity to work across both of those 2 different parts of the practice. And similarly, I had the opportunity to set up times to speak with people in our education practice and people in our health and human services practice. So even if you are really only on that single client project, it doesn't mean you don't still have a lot of opportunity to be engaged with and exposed to the other parts of the practice. Hopefully that answers your question a little.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you.
Any other questions? This is your opportunity to connect, hear, learn.
I have a question. Hi, everyone. Thank you for taking the time to meet with us and talk about your company. And my question is, like, what are some qualities or skill sets that you look for in a successful intern? How can they stand out in your application pool?
It's a wonderful question. I feel like I have personal preferences, but I think they're applicable. I think what is attractive about consulting is that you get to solve a variety of problems, and it's very true, right? And I think the things that make someone a successful intern and eventually consultant or analyst at the junior levels is someone who is resourceful, analytical, and able to basically digest information and make coherent findings out of that type of information that you're gathering. In terms of an MPP or an MPA degree, I like to think of it as an MBA of government. And I think being able to understand how and why governments operate the way they do makes you effective in doing that type of problem solving in a state, local, or government context. So I think, again, it's those core analytical skills combined with some of the subject matter expertise you have in public policy or public administration that make you well suited to be in a consulting role. But I'll pass it off to Tyler to add.
I'd like to add to that actually. I would say as far as some of the characteristics, I know that we really, as a firm, kind of value on an entrepreneurial spirit. I always struggle with that word. And someone who's, resilient, who can see challenges and kind of take the lead on resolving them. And as far as the program, since it's fresh in my mind, since I feel like I just graduated yesterday, thinking back to like the courses that I took that I think are very valuable, valuable and related to the work that we do here. It's going to be that program eval course, that capstone course where you get that real hands-on experience. Also really wish I would have taken public budgeting or public finance. I think that's really helpful, as well as any data analysis courses.
Thank you so much.
Of course.
Hi, did you have anything to add to that? Oh, did I freeze?
No, I was just taking a moment to think about it. No, I think you and Timberly have covered all the major bases. The only thing I would add is just ability to learn. There's a huge amount of range in the work we do. So as just a good skill to have, I'm on a health and human services project right now. This is my first time on the health and human services project. So I need to be able to very quickly figure out, well, what is the universe of behavioral health and developmental disabilities, and how can I very quickly get up to speed on that so I'm able to produce meaningful work and meaningful value for the client as quickly as possible. And I'm sure my next project will just be the same challenge over and over again. So great skill to have.
There's actually a question in the chat, and I'm not sure of the answer, but is there a case study component to the interview process? I know that there is, but it kind of depends on the position or experience. So can Sarah or Ty speak to that?
So it is listed, it is formally part of the process. I don't know exactly what the case consists of.
Yeah, I think my internet is not cooperating. I think it is part of it, but I don't know when it happens and to what degree.
Hi, just had a quick question. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. First of all, thank you very much. I was just curious, who's eligible for an intern? I know some companies, it depends on when you graduate. Other ones let people who freshly graduated be part of their intern program.
Did we lose Sarah?
Hi, my Zoom entirely dropped. And now I'm back.
Yeah, sorry, I can repeat my question. Is this who's eligible for the internship program? Whether it's open to recent graduates as well as upcoming graduates, or if there's like a cutoff? Because I know it depends on different companies.
That is also a good question. I believe it is while in graduate school before graduation.
Yeah, so I just called up the listing to double check. So it's currently working towards graduate degree with the intention to graduate in winter 2025 or spring 2026.
Got you. Thank you very much.
And did we answer the how many interns are accepted question yet in the chat?
Not yet. Seeing if I can
believe this summer our intern class was what, somewhere around 15 to 20?
So last summer we had about 10 undergrad, 2 grad, if I recall, but I could be fuzzy on that.
Yeah.
So I would just say there's not a specific number, but there's a general typical frame, if that makes sense.
Yeah, there's very much a range, so don't focus on the specific number.
Any other questions?
I think there was a screen that had people's contact information.
Yeah, I'll pull that back up.
Thanks.
Sorry. Share my screen again.
One other thing I just want to call out, it looks like Michaela put a question in the chat about asking about the best way to prepare for the interview process. Timberly and Sarah, do you have any thoughts on that?
I do actually. So our interview process, and I hope I'm allowed to say this, our interview process is a little bit different. Instead of just kind of talking generally about, what you've done and what you've accomplished, I would take the time to think about specific instances, specific things that you've worked on, and kind of like how you approach the problem. Yeah.
I mean, the other thing is, I just think just practicing, asking, your friends to just interview with some behavioral interview questions and just getting more and more comfortable with it. I like this is going way above and beyond, but I like talk to myself in the mirror, like practicing to make sure that I was feeling comfortable. Because the more practiced you are, more comfortable you are, the easier it's just going to come across, and that just adds to the positivity of the interview. All right. Anything else?
Yes, I had a quick question. My name is Octavia Roll. Firstly, thank you for taking the time out of your day to hold this session. My question was more geared toward the case study portion of the interview. Is there a specific format or way that you would like us to address the case that we're given? And is there another session or any tips online that could be used as resources for this?
Timberly, can you take a first stab?
Sure. As far as how to approach it, I actually didn't do a case study. That's what I was kind of mentioning earlier, because I technically came in with, experience. So I don't think they do that for experienced hires. But my understanding is that they want to know your thought process. So there's not any specific way to do things, but you have to be able to explain your logic and reasoning. And I'm sorry, I think there was a second part to that question. Did I get that part?
Yes, my second part was about maybe resources that we could use to help us prepare.
That I'm not sure. I think we've hosted sessions in the past. But if you send me an email, I can look into where maybe a recording of that might be, or if we have anything in the future coming up.
Great, thank you so much.
And I'll actually probably share that, I guess, with Sarah or Denise, because I'm sure that'll be valuable to everyone on this call.
So if there's no other questions, I really want to honor all of your time and thank you so much. It was wonderful to have such in-depth understanding about the culture, the recruitment process, your organization. So thank you to Timberly, Ty, and Sarah. It is wonderful. I look forward to continue to work with all of you. Of course, we always love to see happy employed Trachtenberg School alumni and to see all of you here today. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Denise, for the opportunity, and nice to see you all.